Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. I am your host, Jess Jash. Before we dive into today's conversation, I wanted to remind you that the Get Jashed Meditation Plus library is available. If you aren't accessing it yet, you can subscribe. It is a monthly subscription and you get weekly guided meditation and mindfulness practices. And as of this episode coming out, we are up to 15 there in the library. So there's plenty to work with already, and you have full access to the entire Meditation Plus library for as long as you have your subscription. And it's designed to be inclusive for different brain types, for different body needs, and it is worded in a way to feel accessible, as accessible as possible at least. And it's there. It's really the point of it. It's there for you to utilize if you are looking for or needing evidence-based mindfulness or meditation to help you find more of that mindfulness practice that can be so useful for you, but also in a way that works for you, particularly if you spend a lot of your day in your mind, in your head, very cognitively and cerebrally. This can be useful. So I'll include the link below if you want to access and subscribe. It is there, and those subscribers who are already in there and practicing each week or each day and repeating some of those practices are getting a lot out of it. So please go make use of it if you would like to. Today, I wanted to kind of talk about how we feel. There was a big pause there because it's a little bit of an update of like what's been going on over the last 2 years really, but in relation to how we feel when we're working towards things, whether they are big goals or even just your week, and it might feel like you're not really getting anywhere with it, but even though you are making progress and we can't see it yet. So how do we navigate the delayed gratification of it all, and what do we do with that along the way? So what brought this on, what made me want to talk about this was really, I was sitting there reflecting about, okay, well, personally, there's a lot going on. Again, as I record this, but also as this comes out, I will be just about handing in my last assignment for my master's, which has been a 2-year journey. And it's been wonderful, but also not short of a lot. It's been a very packed 2 years as well, and not just to do with the masters. So, that is happening. My book is in production. So at some point around the same time, I'm going to be receiving the final copy proof of the book that I need to read through and approve. So that's all happening, and that's coming out in September. And on that note, I am going to be sharing more details about the book, including the cover, the full name of it. I've alluded to it in different areas, but the full name of it, and when you are able to start pre-ordering that information is coming over between now and September, but over the next couple of months, more and more of that information is going to be coming out. So if you do want to be updated, please sign up to my email list, or you can follow me on the socials on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook to get those updates. But that is also something that's going on too. And again, that was something that also the process began at the end of 2024. So 18 months later, here we are. So that was also a longer creation, a longer goal, a longer project that also took at times a bit of faith and a bit of just being in the vision of it, because it's all very it's all very long. It's all very there's times in some of these bigger pieces of our lives that we have imagined the fruition of whatever it is we're working on, but it is still sometimes hard to see when you're in the thick of it. So that's really what brought me to talk about this topic. And it's more of a lived experience share with touches of what I understand the 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 academic, the research to be to support it, but it's more from that lived experience. If you need a reminder of what you're doing and how that actually is helping you get to where you want to be, even if you can't always see it, because it can be challenging. And I've had weeks, and it's just normal work weeks as well, where it's been the same thing where you're like, oh, I know that this is meant to be helping me in some way. I know that this is getting me towards where I want to be in some way. But also, I kind of feel like I'm just on a treadmill. I'm just, like not really making any progress. But then, in a week or two or three later, you're like, oh, thank God I was just in it and just did that stuff because, yes, eventually it got me to here. But when you're just in it, it's challenging. It's challenging to keep up the motivation. It's challenging to keep the hope or the vision or the drive to do it. It's hard. It's hard sometimes. It's sometimes really easy to be like, well, what exactly am I doing this for? And I mean that literally on the bigger and the everyday scales of things. So it feels like a really important conversation to have because it's such a universal experience. It can be such a universal experience. You don't need to be doing a whole postgraduate degree. You don't need to be writing and having a whole entire book published. You don't need to be doing these outrageous big things to still have things that are important to you that you're working on that feel big or feel overwhelming or feel a certain way. So, what do you do? Is really the question. What do I do when I'm in this mode? And yeah, it would be really easy to be like, well, just keep the vision and just, keep going. It'll work out. And while there may be truth to that sometimes, it doesn't necessarily help us in the moment. So in the moment, there's a couple of things. There's sort of like a both and thing here. So one is delayed gratification. I used to joke, I don't joke about it anymore, but I used to joke that I was so good at delayed gratification. That's all I was good at. I didn't know how to even embrace instant gratification because I just got so good at being forced to be good at delayed gratification. So, delayed gratification is really good for us in many ways because it means, and again, generally speaking, it means that we are more likely to be working on uh, more significant long term supportive things, whatever that context might be for you. We are more likely to be working on more of those long term foundational, structurally stable things for us rather than just getting that instant hit of gratification. So, delayed gratification is an important skill to build. And I would almost argue that it is even more of an important skill to build when structures of our lives have been set up so that we don't often get to practice delayed gratification in so many ways. And I think about like, we used to wait for the post that we might have written letters to friends. And I'm not talking about like centuries back. I'm talking about like, I remember in primary school, I had a friend who moved away. I don't remember where she even moved to, but she moved away And for a while, we used to write letters because it was pre-phones. We were in primary school too, so like pre-phones, but also pre-phones. And it might not have been pre-email, but for a primary schooler, in the late 90s, early noughts, it was pre-email. Like that wasn't something that was in our world at that point. Um, so yeah, for a while we used to write to each other, and that was what we did. That was um, how we kind of kept in connection. So when I say writing letters, I'm not talking about the times of yore where we used to wear corsets and cars didn't exist or anything like that, but I'm talking about how there was a lot of a slower pace between doing one thing and then receiving something back. Even in the sense of, now, and this is why, and this is not even this conversation, but this is why conversations around the right to switch off for work, or the practice of switching off for some of us for work, is very important, because we have emails and text messages and phone calls like immediately accessible to us, and with that has developed this expectation in general that we can expect, or are expected to, have an immediate reply. So this is what I mean by, like, I'm not, those are different topics in terms of issues, but to highlight what we're talking about in the sense of society, things are not exactly set up to help us practice delayed gratification anymore. So we must almost effort a little bit more to practice it ourselves. Because delayed gratification is a skill, because not everything is going to happen immediately. There is always like a gestation process for things. And we need, and this is from my lived experience, we need to develop that skill, or we're gonna go insane. Like, life is going to feel so much more frustrating for us. And I say that as someone who has spent a lot of time frustrated in different ways. So delayed gratification is really important for our neurological health. It is a function that allows us to sometimes make the better decisions for ourselves, for our long-term goals, for our long-term happiness, for what we're wanting to set up in our lives, rather than just rushing into what's most available. So that is an important skill. And in the context of working towards a goal or working towards progress for something, it's the both end. We also need to allow ourselves to have those moments of acknowledgement, of reward, of progress along the way. So, for example, going back to just the example that I'm running with of spending 2 years doing a postgraduate master's degree, and then the last 18 months of writing a book, submitting the book to the publishers, going through that part of the process now, which is less on me, which is great. But, having all of these longer term things with university, it is broken up into semesters. So that arguably made it a bit easier, because yes, you're kind of looking towards the goal of graduation and having that achievement. And yes, that piece of paper, like I'm going to go down and wear the cap and gown, because I like moments of celebration. I like moments of ritual and celebration and things like that. But yes, like, and I did this part-time, so it was 2 years. So yes, I had that goal to look forward to and to work towards, but it was broken up per semester by nature of how it works, right? So it's broken up per semester. So really you're having those smaller moments of goals, which works really well in terms of the reward centers and the drive and the giving yourself a feeling. So you have like 3 months of a semester, which goes really quick, by the way. And then you have the reward of like completing assignments, and you have like assignments within the semester. So mostly it was 3 per subject. So you have assignments and you work towards it and you complete. And then you work towards it and you complete. And you work towards it and you complete. And all of that feeds into the whole. And it also gives you the moments of completion, of accomplishment, of reward, of achieving something along the way that is so very necessary to keeping your energy levels and your drive functional enough, not in burnout, but functional enough to help you. So each semester worked on that basis for me, whereas like you're working towards the overall goal, but you also have the reward of I completed another semester, completed 2 more subjects each time. How wowee, that's great. And then you have a little break, which was never really a little break for people like who are grown and we're working and we're, doing fucking everything else and also writing a book at the same time. But in terms of that goal, you have a little break and then you dive into it again for another 3 months and you get to go through the process. You have the more immediate goals of attending the workshop sessions and then working towards the assignment and then completing the assignment and then the next one and completing it and the next one and completing it, which means you've completed that semester and wowee, you've done it again. You've progressed. Do you see where I'm going with this? So you've progressed. You've allowed yourself to focus on, yes, the greater vision, and also what are the steps along the way. And the uni setup is a really easy example because it's naturally set up that way, but it works. And if we look at that, how we apply that to other things in our lives. So the book, I broke that up into, and this is not necessarily best practice. This is just what I had to do, what I was able to do, what I managed to do. Like it's sometimes it's not all because everything's going peachy keen. It's like, well, fuck it. This is what I can do given circumstances of X, Y, Z that are going on that might have nothing to do with that particular project. So with the book, I broke that up into monthly word count goals in the writing process. So I knew the overall word count that I was aiming for, and I knew the framework of things I needed to cover for wholeness of the entire thing, rather than going, well, I hit 80,000 words, tick, done, and it might not actually be complete in that way. But so I had the overall rough goal word count wise, and I knew the framework. So the parts in the chapter breakdown of what they were roughly going to be and what I was roughly going to like, what was being directed into each of them. So that was helpful as the larger goal. And then I broke it down into monthly word count. And I would look at the month ahead. And this was the balance. I would look at the month ahead. What else did I have going on? Because different months of the year meant different things in terms of uni pressure for me, assignment pressure, like what else did I have going on that might have impacted that realistic achievement of the word count goal, with also what do I have going on that I already know of that might impact later in the year, and how do I just do what I can do while I can, so it's not this big push at the end of the year. So it's this balancing act of going, what's realistic, but also what else do I have? So what ideally do I need to be doing now so that I can keep the pressure off in that particular month that I know is coming up, and then I have a shit ton of things to do, whatever it is. So that is how I approached that. So I allowed myself to have the monthly goals. And look, I rarely met the monthly goals that I set myself, but I gave myself progress scores. So my dear friend Lacey, she is a high school teacher now, but we have known each other since we were 13. She gave me this tip. So she's very wise to who I am as a person, but also very wise because of what she does. And she's a writer too. So she shared that she does post-it notes. So this is what I did. I went and did each month. I went, all right, let's say my goal is 20,000 words for the month. I went and did post-it notes that were 1,000 words at a time. So 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, so on and so forth. And what I then did was I would work away. I'd schedule in, get into a flow or a pattern of how my day or week would look, where I'm getting some words out. And each time I got another 1,000 words, I took off one of the post-its. So little progress markers of little moments of I achieved this along the way kept me relatively sane. That's what you need to set up for yourself. At the same time as trusting in the process, which is the hardest words to hear when you're in the fucking process. Trusting in the process is the hardest thing to hear. Just trust in the process is so hard to hear when you're in it, and yet sometimes it's still just the reality. It's just the truth of what it is. And if you have set everything up and you are doing the work, and we can bring this into more of like a micro level where it's like you're in a particular week and you feel like you're not getting anything accomplished, but you know you're doing a whole bunch of things that might show up later in later weeks. It might, let's bring it in to our everyday, almost our every week. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves like, okay, this is just one of those weeks that I'm not getting that accomplishment, but I can trust in the process because I've done this enough times before to know that it's fine, to know that it's going to work out, to know that it's supporting me for later in the month, for next week, for the week after, whatever it is, whatever your line of work is, whatever you do, you've done this enough before. So you can use that as proof and you can remind yourself, okay, sometimes that's it. It's okay, that's how I'm feeling. And I've done this before. So even if I'm not getting the moments of reward of feeling like I'm accomplishing anything, look, I've done this enough before. So I know that it's going to come. It's going to come out in the wash. It's going to sort itself out and I'll feel glad for having my head down and just getting the things done in a couple of weeks' time when I get to this stage. But I need to do this to get to that stage. So use this as a reminder because it works on, yes, the bigger levels, but also on the smaller levels. We need to practice both delayed gratification while we also give ourselves those little reminders of accomplishment, or at the very least, a reminder of I've done this before. So I know how good I'm going to feel once I do it, even if it feels tedious and like I'm not really achieving anything in this moment. Once I got to the editing stage of my draft of the book, I had to do that. I had to, because it's a different process to writing, which doesn't mean it was better or worse or harder or easier. It was just different. So it meant that all of the habits, all of the patterns, all of the like the habits and the structures I'd set up to support my writing process meant that I then had to set up kind of a different flow of how I worked in the editing process. So it meant kind of redoing a lot of things and figuring that out anew. And that's how it worked. So let this be a reminder of how you take care of you as you're working towards things big or small, and keep yourself sane along the way rather than defeated, demoralized with the thing. So find what that is for you. Find what that is for you and adjust as you need to, and allow the adjustment ickiness as it happens. That's really what I want to leave you with. I hope this is helpful.